Hello, this is Dan Ferrisi, Editor-in-Chief with Commercial Integrator and host of the AV Plus podcast, welcoming you to AV Plus, the podcast for the commercial AV integration industry. The entire commercial AV industry is now back from ISE 2023, a very successful show in Barcelona, and we're delighted to be joined today by Steve Greenblatt, who is President, Founder, and CEO of Control Concepts, and Brittany DiCesare, who is Client Success Manager with Control Concepts. All of us today are going to be talking about our reflections on ISE, the trends that we've discerned, and what conclusions we've drawn about where the commercial AV industry is going. It's all today on AV Plus.
As always, please like and subscribe to our YouTube page, and please subscribe to the AV Plus podcast on Apple and on Spotify.
Well, Steve, Brittany, thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful to connect with you while in Barcelona. Really always enjoy catching up with the Control Concepts team. But I want to thank you especially for joining me today on AV Plus to share your reflections and your perspective on the show.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. And we love every minute we get to spend with you. So thanks for taking the time out of your very busy schedule at ISE to spend some time with us. We appreciate it.
It's always great to be on with you, Dan. So thank you so much for having us.
The feeling is certainly mutual. It's always wonderful to connect with people who are not only, I think, peers and colleagues, but certainly also friends. And that's what ISE is really all about. And all of these shows are, from my perspective. What I'd like to start with is my initial top line takeaway from ISE 2023, which is essentially that it didn't feel like a pandemic era show, certainly. It also didn't really feel to me like a post-pandemic show. What it felt to me like, and I wrote about this on commercialintegrator.com, is it felt like a 2018 or a 2019 show. It felt like a pre-pandemic show. It seemed genuinely to be back at full strength. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I think we were in the mid 50,000s as far as confirmed people on site. So what was your takeaway? Why don't we start with you, Steve, then we'll move over to Brittany. Do you agree with me? Did this feel like a pre-pandemic show to you, or did you feel like you still had to kind of grade it on a curve, so to speak?
I certainly agree with you, and it was our first time in Barcelona, so it was a little bit hard to compare apples to apples. But if we compare this to what Amsterdam felt like, or even what Infocom felt like recently, it was well attended, and it had great energy. There were always people in the aisles. There were the stands were all very well outfitted. The manufacturers brought a significant amount of people on their team. It really didn't seem like any corners were cut, and it was really great to see that. It had great positive energy, and I think that there was. I know that we all need to be concerned with health, and we all need to say that we learn from what we had experienced, but there really was no sign of it. And I hope, and it seemed like that was for the better. And we can't say we're completely turning the page, but I believe that this was a show that everybody can point to say that we're now headed back to a positive trajectory, and trade shows are really demonstrating their need and their value, because there's can be no argument there from regarding the attendance that everybody says we need to go to trade shows.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what is your assessment, Brittany? Do you agree with Steve and I that not only do people really need to come to trade shows, but when you go to a show like ISE 2023 in particular, you get a lot of what you're looking for. You're getting high quality traffic, you're getting impressive technology, really incomparable networking events. Is that what your feeling was?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, my frame of reference is a little skewed because my only ISE in the past was 2020. And we were at the start of all of this uncertainty. And I also worked for VIX at the time, so I wasn't going as an attendee. So it was so nice to come here for ISE 2023 and really see the volume and the traffic of people. It really did feel like we were back in 2019 and everything was back to the way it was beforehand. And people were excited and eager, not only to get together, but to see our industry flourishing, and to see the excitement over stands and new products and getting to be able to meet with people again. So it definitely felt like what I was expecting ISE 2020 to be before we found out how things were going and shaping up. In 2020, our staff was told, like, don't even shake hands. And now we're like back to hugging and being able to be close to all the people that feel like family. So it was definitely the place to be. We had a little bit of FOMO last year because we chose not to go in May. And I am so glad we made the decision to come, because I think we really would have missed out on some amazing conversations and meetings had we not been there.
I think FOMO and family are two words of what you said that really stuck out. It really does feel like a family reunion, and not kind of a fluffy or just like a poetic way, but it really feels like that is in a sincere way. People in our industry care about each other. They care about each other's business welfare and about each other personally, talking about our children, talking about our family members, all that kind of thing. It's genuine and it's real and it's special. And I think when people are on AV Tweep's Twitter or on LinkedIn and they're not at a show like whether it's ISE or Commercial Integrator Expo or Infocom, they really do feel that FOMO because their friends are there, their AV family is there. And it was a treat for me to attend, even if there were some downsides of how busy the show was. For example, 20 or 25-minute lunch lines, things like that. The difficulty trying to get a cab in the morning. Some of that was a little bit challenging, but that all redounds to the benefit of the show insofar as it shows that people are back. Our industry is back. In-person events are back.
There's no doubt about it. And I would agree with you that any of the shortcomings or the challenges that we faced were certainly outweighed by the benefits. And I think on social media, there was a lot of discussion about it looked like everybody was having fun, but that's what we do when we're together, but we also are supportive of each other. And I think unlike Infocom, where it was just everybody getting together to make sure everybody was okay, here we were talking about business. And I think that's also what makes ISE special, is being able to sit down, have meetings, and be able to really dig in and get to know people. That's what we look at as why we attend ISE and what makes it unique for us.
Right. Now, Control Concepts, of course, is a company that has a stellar legacy. It's been around for a number of years, but one of the things I think really sets it apart, or that characterizes it favorably, is your willingness to evolve and adapt and embrace new technology trends and broaden your skill sets, et cetera. What's some of the latest news from Control Concepts? I believe you announced something quite important in association with the ISE show. And also, what were your goals there? When you were at the show, what deliverables were you looking to achieve? What goals were you looking to make sure that you got done in Barcelona?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we have a longstanding history in the industry. We've been in the industry for 25 years. And, for us, we started as independent programmers, and we understand the needs of programmers in our industry. And as those needs have evolved, and our industry has evolved, we have seen a need arise for a new representation in our industry, or a new identity. And so we've kind of morphed into this AV software development role, where we're putting together the building blocks for programmers to use in the field. So, we, like I said, we're programmers, so we understand what programmers are looking for, and now we're building the tools to help them. And in terms of the announcement at ISE, we were excited to be one of the founding members of QSIS's development partner program. So we're really excited about that. And what that means is we have partnered with them, and we are equipped and trained to be able to develop plugins for manufacturers in the same way that QSIS develops them in their own platform. So we know the ins and outs of the platform, and we're ready and equipped to do that for the manufacturers who are our clients. And although the manufacturers are paying for that, and the clients that we work with directly, it's serving programmers who we are really very fond of. We have a closeness to them because that's who we are at the heart of what we do.
And that is certainly a very, very exciting announcement. Certainly, as not only industry participants, but industry observers, we have been seeing QSIS just rocketing up in the last couple of years in terms of deployments and just attention given to it. So what a powerful partnership for Control Concepts. How do you feel about it, Steve?
Well, Brittany really summed it up very well. And you know, the thing that makes us feel good is that we're trying to help contribute to making everybody's job easier. And we look at it as being collaborative. QSIS is one of the platforms we support. So we do have to mention that we do support many others, and both on the commercial and residential side, and we are impartial. But it was very timely for them to have this announcement so that we could celebrate it together. And it gave us a little bit of ability to share our story and really present this new identity that we've been working on for some time. And we've been investing a little bit differently than other companies to try to really bring modern programming languages into the AV space. And this is a great representation of it.
Yeah. I think, much like evolution, when you think about the willingness to adapt and evolve and pivot and be nimble, I think that those really are characteristics that characterize Control Concepts. And that's why you've been successful for 25 years and why you'll continue to be. You're not trying to recapture the industry of 1995 or even of 2015. You're moving as the industry moves, striking key partnerships and making sure that your skill sets and your core competencies speak to the needs of the market today.
Yeah. And, I'll say this because I know Steve won't brag on himself, but coming in, I came into Control Concepts last year, but he was very intentional about seeing the vision of the industry, seeing where things were going, and not just looking at the immediate. And so not closing things down, kind of trying to just stay tight and just make it through pandemic times. He saw, no, when we get out of this, there's going to be a need for us to be ready, to be equipped, to have a team ready to develop and to make sure that we can handle the cues that are going to be coming our way. So he had the forethought and put action behind that. And so I think that's a lot of the reason behind our success over 25 years and why I truly believe we're going to continue to be successful, because we're being strategic and we have a leader at the forefront who's thinking in those terms.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Brittany. I know that Steve is not boastful, nor are you for that matter, but it bears mention because not every company is so willing to adapt and willing to evolve and willing to broaden, as I say, core competencies and recognize the fact that our industry is not the industry of yesterday. It's going to be an industry that's quite different tomorrow, and you're positioning yourself to succeed. I want to talk about interoperability because that's something that really has seemed to be tip of the tongue for a lot of individuals, particularly in relation to the supply chain. And people being fearful of essentially being so dependent on any particular manufacturer, any particular vendor in their supply chain, that their projects are, paralyzed essentially if that vendor does not come through. Are you seeing interoperability being a big, big trend in the future?
It's certainly important and it has always been there, but it's really been highlighted in recent years. And I think there was a time where there was more of manufacturer trying to promote a single brand solution. And I think that we've learned that, like in other industries, diversification is important. And quite honestly, that's why control systems exist, to make different products work together. So the way we look at interoperability, although it can have a lot of meanings to different people, is making products easy to control and make them so that there isn't an impact on the user if you're going to use one brand or one type of product versus another. It's still going to provide the same outcome. I think we all are trying to get to the point where there's more standardization and you can have products that will just plug in and they're not going to require any additional changes. We're a little bit off from that at now, but I think it's still a good goal. But from our perspective, what we're trying to do is help manufacturers get closer to that from a control standpoint. And Brittany can elaborate more on that as well.
Yeah. So I think it's important. What we're seeing is control platforms really focusing on building this ecosystem. So not necessarily only being concerned with controlling their own products, but making sure that they have the availability and are capable of working across different manufacturers. So that's where what we do really comes in handy, because we can take those. It's not just about an API anymore. You've got to make sure that you have those building blocks for the programmers, and that's where we excel. So being able to take those APIs and connect them so that in the field, it's ease of programming. It's not taking months, it's taking hours, if that. We're really trying to make sure that it feels almost plug and play. But in those circumstances, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that has to go into that. And so making sure you're investing in good quality work and good quality building blocks so that everything comes together.
Right. And you use the word ecosystem, which certainly is something I heard a whole lot about. The other terms I heard a whole lot about at these shows are open garden and closed garden. It was almost like we were at a horticulturist convention. And pretty much everyone that I heard using the word closed garden was using it derisively, was using it negatively. We're not going to have this closed garden approach anymore. Nobody wants a closed garden approach. Is that what you feel is the zeitgeist of the moment in this industry? The idea that if people feel like they're essentially locked in to something, that's something they're going to buck against. And therefore, if they want an ecosystem, they want an ecosystem, as you say, where multiple components from multiple vendors can all be part of it. And to your point about control, everything kind of work together seamlessly.
I believe that without casting judgment, I think that we're all going to be a better industry if we start to be more open. And I think being guarded and closed is a defense mechanism or a defensive strategy, where if you're open, you're more of taking an abundance route and saying there's enough for everybody to share here. We all want to be a part of it, so let's work together to benefit the client. And I mean, I think that's what that entails. Just to define that a little bit too, a lot of times when we're talking about that closed or the walled garden, it means that a manufacturer is not being open and disclosing how to communicate with their product outside of their own company. They're keeping that tight to the vest because they want to protect their position and their leverage with a client. And unfortunately, that is probably not going to be received well by a lot of clients. And I think those that may have gone down that road will probably choose a different road now that they've experienced what happened through the pandemic.
Anything you want to add on that subject, Brittany?
Yeah, I think this open-mindedness really just helps strengthen our industry. Every company has things that they're strong in. And if we can just marry those strengths together across the different manufacturers, I think it really strengthens what we're seeing in the field. I think it strengthens our representation to end clients. I think it shows that we're an industry that wants to excel at what we do, regardless of the players involved. We all want to work together. And I think that what we're seeing and showing to our clients now is the family feel that we all feel in the industry. I think we're all showing like, we're all in this together. We care about this industry and we want this industry to be strong and fruitful for decades to come. So in order to do that, you've got to be able to come together, and you've got to be able to say, you know what, you're stronger here, we're stronger here. Let's play nice in the garden.
Right. And we do all want the industry to be strong and fruitful far into the future. And I think one of the ways to do that is recognizing, as most of us have, the shift toward the experiential. And going around booths at the show, it certainly seemed to me like there were many, many fewer booths where there were just a bunch of black boxes with text underneath them adorning walls. Instead, what we were seeing were technology kind of in situ, a mock boardroom or a mock classroom or a mock all hands room, or any kind of a space where you're seeing the technology in its proper context. So you get a sense of the experience as opposed to just getting a sense of the spec sheet. Did you agree with that? Did you see that? And do you think that that is an auspicious sign for the way things are going in the industry, moving away from specsmanship and more toward the end user experience?
Yeah, definitely. We take a little bit of a different approach to the show. So we're not there solely looking at the technology, but I will say from the shows of the past to now, I've definitely seen this shift. And I think some of it I would attribute to the different generations. I know for myself, I have a really hard time visualizing things if it's just given to me like in spec sheet form. But if I can sit and immerse myself in it, if I can sit and really see everything in action and see it working, I can better understand what's happening and better explain that to my client. And so I think we're seeing integrators who being able to sit within it, to really immerse themselves in it, they can understand it better and explain it to the client in a way that it's not just, well, this sheet says it can do this and that. Actually, no, I've seen it. It can do this. This is the benefits to you because I've actually experienced it myself.
Right.
I would say it also speaks to similar to, what we're saying here, the different audience too. I think that technical people are probably more in the minority going to these trade shows, but more of the more sales, more client facing, and more clients are and I think that, like Brittany said, they need to be able to paint a picture of what you can accomplish with the products, not just all of the data that is associated with a cut sheet and as the specs of a product.
One other thing that I saw is the companies that we did get to sit in and really experience, they're showcasing their ecosystem and the different products that work well. So they're not in their booth. They're not only showcasing their product, they've got products from a bunch of different manufacturers working together. So I think that continues to show the need for that interoperability and how important it is to the success.
It really is fascinating when you think about the pandemic years, those 3 years, and not that it's entirely over now, but largely I think it's in the rear view, and how transformative it has been in so many aspects of our lives. I mean, not just our personal lives, working from home in many cases, et cetera, but also changing, trade shows and changing supply chain to the point that people are looking for that kind of interoperable ecosystem, bringing together multiple manufacturers. David Danto, obviously a friend and commercial integrator, our editor of Collaboration Today and Tomorrow, always says we're never going back to the old way. It's changed forever and ever. Do both of you agree with that, Steve and Brittany? Do you feel like the pandemic has not just been kind of a blip that things will revert at some point to something resemble normalcy, but now we are in a new world and forever will be in a new world?
It's funny that you brought that up because that's exactly what I was thinking where we were going with this conversation. So I'm glad we're talking about it. So we could hope that this is going to be permanent, and I think it's going to be for the best. I think that still there are going to be some people that are going to fall back to what they were comfortable with, and there's certainly going to be pressure to do so. And some of that comes down to just habits. Some of it comes down to the comfort level. Even if some product is substitutable, some people have a block and they say, I can only work with this one versus the other. And it also comes down to having that open-mindedness and a different talent pool potentially. So, I really like what Brittany was saying about the younger generation. We really have to start thinking about how do we embrace them, and this is, I think, something that they could help us lead the way into thinking a little bit differently and not always going back to what has worked in the past.
Right.
Yeah, I think I feel like we were seeing the industry start heading this way before the pandemic. And I think the pandemic just escalated it and just really kind of hit the throttle on it and forced everyone out of their comfort zones, because now we've never been through this. Like, this is all new for the world, and no one's comfort zone exists. We've got to all figure this out together. And so I think it really just accelerated what we were probably seeing. And again, that's my opinion, but I think now it's our opportunity to not look back. Let's not look in the rear view. That's not the way we're going. Let's focus on, okay, this is where we sit currently. What does the future look like? And how can we continue to expand on this new foundation?
Yeah. And it's an exciting future. And this new foundation, I think, does give us something on which we can build and something on which we can plan for a very robust and very fruitful several years ahead. But the question is, to your point, exactly which way are we going to be going? And will there still be some who are looking to revert back to the ways of old? And just how powerful a voice will they have compared to the newer, younger generation who are saying that this new future we're building for ourselves is exciting and potentially very lucrative for those in the commercial AV field. As we begin to wrap up the podcast, I'm curious, as far as ISE 2023 goes, did anything surprise you there? Anything that, maybe caught you off guard, a trend that you weren't anticipating, or some kind of a pivot that you weren't anticipating? I know you were all over the show floor speaking to a lot of different people. Anything surprise you?
I'll say the one thing that surprised me was a lot of the manufacturers we reached out to were really focused on sending their EMEA or Asia teams. And in the past, we've seen teams from all over the globe coming. And I'm not saying that no one from the Americas came. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just our contacts that we would typically be working with. I noticed there was a lot more focus on, no, we're going to Infocom this year. Our other teams are going to ISE. And I think we're seeing a lot of that global world really equipped to be able to handle the different shows.
Right.
So I loved that. And I think we can continue to just make even more contacts, which I think is the whole goal, to continue to expand the contacts that we have within our industry. I'll also say what surprised me is I was not expecting the number of people. I really wasn't. We saw what I would call post-pandemic success at Infocom in 2022. And I was expecting that level. I was blown away by the number of people. I was blown away with the lines we were in, just trying to get in. I was blown away with the traffic going from stand to stand. And I have to say it was very energizing. And I think that, we can choose how we look at that. And I think that there are ways to just better ISE in Barcelona in the future. But for me, it was energizing to see our industry really thriving at this point and to see the excitement in Barcelona around this show. And honestly, the support of Barcelona and all of Spain for all of the people that come for the show, and how much, in terms of transit help and people directing us to the Fira on the metro, everyone was just so helpful. And you can tell that there's such excitement from those living in Barcelona for what we're bringing to them. So I think that all of that was pretty exciting.
Did you feel that same level of energy kind of suffusing you, Steve, when you go to a show like that?
Without a doubt, it was, honestly, there were probably some halls that we didn't really spend very much time in because we were there for the four full days, which was different from the way we had approached Amsterdam. We would usually leave on the last day, but I wouldn't do it any other way. We really need 4 days, and it was massive. It was crowded, and there was a lot to see. And there was still a lot of exploring that could have been done. I get a lot of energy, especially even though it's out of character for me as an introvert, that but I get a ton of energy from going to these types of things and being around people. We certainly had a few learning lessons, and next time we'll be a lot more comfortable with Barcelona. But the one thing that I would recommend for everyone is to make sure you're intentional about meeting up with people, because sometimes you only get to see them that one time and you don't get a chance to run into them again because of the pure size and population of the show itself. So but either treasure that time or make sure that you're intentional about making other times to meet up, because at the end, there was a few people that I would have liked to have more time to speak with.
I couldn't agree more. I can't tell you how many people I might have had like 3 or 4 intentional minutes speaking to them in an aisleway or something like that. Patrick Whipkey and Ifat Chaudhry, people I just happened to run into. And I took that time when I had it because I knew I probably wasn't going to see them again. It was just so much going on. So I agree with that 100%, taking that time to connect with people when you have the opportunity. The other thing I wanted to mention quickly is, Brittany, I know you recently wrote a piece. I think it's launched on the Control Concepts website, The New AV Identity, Our Perspective from ISE 2023, talking about some of your first-person perspective there, the trend toward interoperability. Also, this idea of AV software developers being a new identity entering the AV industry is a really, really important stakeholder. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what inspired you to write that piece and where people can find it?
Sure. So you can find it on controlconcepts.net. But I really love being able to just put into writing what we saw, because like we mentioned, our purpose for being at shows is a little bit different from typical attendees. And so I love being able to highlight the different themes that we heard talked about across all the different halls and across all the people we were able to meet with. And also I loved being able to take the time to own this new identity, because this is where we've seen ourselves for a few years. And now the industry, I feel like, has caught up and is seeing the importance of this. And so to be able to stand on that and say, we've been doing this for years and we're ready to help you. I love being able to share that message. And at the forefront of what we do, we want to help our industry. And so to be able to stand on this new identity and show the industry, it's time to start really investing in this and explain the reasons why. It's what excites me. And I think what our company really stands on is being able to help our industry thrive. So again, you can find that on controlconcepts.net, and we'll be happy to share that out on our socials too in a couple days. So
it's a great read. I really encourage everyone to check it out, especially if you want to learn more about the ascendance of this very important category, AV software developers, and how it's going to affect our industry in the long term, and how Control Concepts is going to be right at the vanguard of it. But I want to thank you so much, Steve, and thank you so much, Brittany, for joining me today on the AV Plus podcast. Always appreciate when you join me, and it's always a learning experience, and even more importantly, so nice to have connected with you in Barcelona. It's such a pleasure.
We appreciate it. It's great to see you, Dan, and we always like to help out the industry, help out commercial integrator. And I would also just add that I think it's going to be a good time for integration moving forward. So I think that this audience will really benefit from the trends that we just discussed.
100%. Well, let's seize on the power of ISE 2023, have a really strong InfoComm, have a really strong Commercial Integrator Expo, and continue to make those essential connections. I'm looking forward to seeing you at all of them. Steve Greenblatt, who is President and Founder and CEO of Control Concepts, and Brittany DiCesare, who is Client Success Manager with Control Concepts. Thank you so much once again for being on the AV Plus podcast, sharing your expertise, and please do go to controlconcepts.net to check out that article from Brittany. Thanks once again for being here.